All right, so welcome everybody to the WomenNC information session for our leadership training program. We have with us some former scholars. We have some folks who are currently interested in perhaps applying for the program. Some of our former scholars are board members. We also have a WomenNC intern, our social media manager here. So we've got a bunch of different people with different roles within WomenNC, different people from different schools. And so we're here to answer questions and give you information. So Lauren, you suggested we start introducing ourselves. So I've talked enough. I will stop speaking and let you all take over.
Yeah, and I should say, I think we can just kind of go around and each introduce ourselves, just say a few things. But then we really can start if any of our prospective scholars have initial questions. Feel free to throw them out as we get going. And if not, we can just kind of keep talking to y'all about the experiences that we've had. So I'll just start. I'm Lauren. I was a scholar in the 2016 to 2017 academic year. My research was on dating and sexual violence prevention education among youth, and currently working for a nonprofit in my full-time job called Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina. And I am the chair of the programming committee. So working with Sarah and Bridget, who are also on this call, as well as Shri, who's not here yet, to get the scholarship program ready for y'all when you arrive. So yeah, happy to see all of you. Let's see, I'm just gonna popcorn to Sarah. Do you wanna go next?
Yeah, sure thing. And I apologize for the lovely setting, but I had an appointment that went a little over, but it's okay. In the world of Zoom, we can make do. So like Lauren said, I'm a board member of WomenNC on the programming committee, but I'm also a former scholar. When I was in the scholars program, I went to NC State for my undergraduate degree, and that was in the 2018 to 2019 school year. And I studied specifically menstrual hygiene access and studied period stigma and things of that sort, specifically in North Carolina, but then also globally. And I am currently a master's student at Duke, studying public policy. And I'll popcorn it over to Caitlin now.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Grimes, and I was a scholar of the WomenNC program, and I'm also currently on the board of directors. I was a scholar in the 2017-2018 cohort and graduated from Meredith College in 2018. And since then, I've been working in Governor Cooper's administration, and I was recently promoted as communications director for First Lady Kristen Cooper. So I feel like at this point, being 3 years into it, I'm a very seasoned state employee. That's what I'm going to call it. But yeah, I studied the status of rural women in North Carolina and studying communication and branding strategies on how to promote rural women in North Carolina. So really enjoyed my research, and I work with a lot of rural communities in the state now. So definitely using the tactics and strategies I learned during my research and time with WomenNC in my current position. So happy to answer any questions once we get going.
Bridget, why don't you go next?
Absolutely. So hello, everyone. I apologize for not being on camera just yet. I'm trying to get settled, so I'll be here in a minute so you can put a face to the name. But I am Bridget Pittman Blackwell. I'm a first-year master's student. I'm a former WomenNC scholar from this most recent year, 2019 to 2020. And my research when I was a scholar, I looked at dress code policies in Durham and how they influence the learning environment and sexualization in African-American middle school girls. I am also a WomenNC board member. I work at RTI and getting my master's in psychology. So super, super excited to see you all here. And I will popcorn it off to Samia.
Hi everyone, my name is Samia Noor. I'm a former WomenNC scholar from the most recent year, 2019 to 2020. Unfortunately during COVID, which is not super fun, but it was nice to be able to still work on the project. My project was on intimate partner gun violence in women in Durham County, North Carolina. So I had a really great time researching that, and I'm happy to be here and answer questions and meet and see potential WomenNC scholars.
Ava, you want to go next?
Hello, I'm Ava Smith. I'm a senior at UNC Chapel Hill, and my majors are women and gender studies as well as exercise and sports science. And I'm doing like independent feminist research this semester on sexual empowerment through TikTok. So that'll be really exciting. And if Margaret wants to go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Okay. I am a prospective NC scholar, NC Women's Scholar. I just love hearing about all the scholars projects. Those sound really amazing. I don't know if there are any other people who have already gone through the program here. And I'm on my phone, so it's a little bit hard to navigate. No?
So yes, many of the, sort of everyone you've heard so far, except for Ava and me, has been through the program. Okay. So that's good news for you. So you can get your questions and fire away when you have them, because you probably have some answers from different years. I think you'll be able to get at least some of your questions answered. Where are you a student?
I'm at Duke right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think my initial question would just be, what were the best parts of the program and the most challenging parts of the program for the people who have gone through it? And I'm particularly interested in women's health. So for those who did projects on like menstrual health and those sorts of themes, that's really cool. I'd love to hear more.
Thanks, Margaret. Yeah, I was thinking, why don't we have the other few prospective scholars introduce themselves, and then we can, if y'all have additional questions you want to throw out, and then we can jump into just going around and answering maybe any and all of the questions that y'all initially have. So Nia, do you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Nia Martin. I'm a student at North Carolina Central, and I'm currently a freshman. And if any of you had majors that were focused more on STEM, how were you able to kind of connect that with your research that you do with this program?
Great, we'll definitely get to that question. Selena, do you want to take the floor?
Yes. Hello, everybody. I'm thankful for being here, listening to all of you speak about your amazing projects. They were really awesome to hear about. My name is Selena Garcia, and I'm also a freshman at North Carolina Central University. My two majors are mass communications and biomedical sciences with a minor in public health education. So, and I guess my question would also kind of tie to Nina's about how you incorporate your different majors with the research you're doing.
Awesome, thank you, Selena. And then Saha, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I am not currently an undergrad student. I've already graduated. So I guess my first question would be, are you guys recruiting even if prospective applicants are not currently in undergrad? And if you're not, that's fine too. I had never heard about WomenNC before I read today's email. So I was really interested and I wanted to just, join and kind of learn about what, everybody's been doing. So yeah, I guess I could just kind of tell you guys a little bit about myself. I actually graduated in December 2014, so I'm probably a lot older than everybody here. I graduated in political science and philosophy, and I had a minor in economics. I've always been interested in the legal field, the nonprofit, and what really drove me or made me interested in WomenNC's, because it just felt very empowering to be able to do research that actually can be then used to bring change. So that kind of theme, it just really like that's what I really got from the email, and so I decided to join.
We're so glad you did. I think, unfortunately, right now the program will be focused on undergrads, but I'm still so glad you're here because there's so many ways that we can all be involved in WomenNC. And so I think if you're interested in kind of joining us as just the work that we do, I think there are ways that we can plug you in and you can still get involved. Maria, I'm sure you have even more ideas than I do, but I'm so glad that you came. And I think
I'm really glad you came too, Sama. So Lauren's right. Unfortunately, it is only open to undergraduate students, but you might want to stay and hear about it. And maybe we could connect, if not right after this, then at another time if you're interested, because I think someone who has the degrees that you have and the interest that you have can plug in to WomenNC and help us, and maybe we can help you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's fabulous. And I guess I just want to say before I shut up, and I will shut up in a second, that's also what we are interested in helping you. You're interested in doing a project that interests you, that, as Samha said, actually impacts women and girls in North Carolina, but at the same time, giving you some skills and giving you contacts that hopefully will help you continue that work after you leave us. That's sort of what we're all about. To me, that's what empowerment is about. So that's really what we want to do. And there's a number of ways to plug into that. And in fact, I just realized I don't have Selena and Nia and Margaret and Samia's, I'm sorry, Samia, not Samia, Samha's emails. So if you could type your emails in the chat box, that would be really helpful so we can sort of follow up with you, and that way we'll know who you are. You know how to get in touch with us. But anyway, so that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I just wanted to pull back up for questions we heard so far for former scholars were what were the best parts, what were the most challenging parts, and then also for those of y'all whose majors are focused on STEM, how to tie that into potential research projects or the scholars program. And as we start to answer these questions, if other questions come up, feel free to like unmute and jump in or type them in the chat, or we can just kind of bounce things off as we go. But did anyone want to start maybe even specifically on the STEM question? Does anybody want to answer that? Try answering that.
I don't mind taking it. I know there was someone had asked specifically about the menstrual health aspect. And so to clarify, I did not have a STEM major. I was very much like a humanities and social science person, but my project did have a public health component to it. So there definitely is a lot of opportunity to allow this project to kind of marry your specific interests or your major, anything of that sort. So don't feel at all like if you are a social science major or don't have a whole lot of social science experience or policy experience that this would preclude you from doing well. Actually, one of the last cohort scholars from 2019-2020, she's not on the call right now, but her name's Nyla. She was a biomedical engineering undergrad and is a public health master's student at Harvard now. So there definitely have been, STEM students in the past, but for me, I think it's really just about, again, like kind of taking whatever issue you're passionate about and looking at it through an equity and gender lens. So for example, even if you were to look at something like sports or health and wellness, things of that sort, looking at them through a gendered lens. So whether it's pay equity in national level sports or in college sports, or looking at public health access to women and girls across North Carolina, there are definitely lots of opportunities to apply whatever discipline you're interested in. And you can go, I think, as in depth to this like more STEM or hard science side of things as you want, but you're still going to get those skills regardless of policy and social science, just because that's kind of some of the nature of the program with some of the workshops that we do. But I think we, especially coming from the program community, we really welcome people of all backgrounds to apply, because I think that there's this notion that within advocacy or even public policy that it has to purely be people that come from that discipline. But I think really adding as many voices to the table as possible is ultimately one of our biggest goals, and is why we work with so many schools. And for me, like coming from a school like NC State, very much like a STEM and ag background, so there's definitely a lot of opportunities as well to connect with different researchers and professors and things of that sort who do work specifically in your field, but with a gendered lens to it. So yeah, all that to say, definitely there's lots of opportunity to incorporate STEM and public health into your project.
Awesome, thanks, Sarah. I'd also add that if you already have an idea of a specific research project you'd want to take on, we can even connect you directly to some of the femtors, our research mentors that are part of the program, if you'd want to talk through potential research ideas to see if you'd be able to do it in the program. So if there's any questions related to that, we can also even take a deeper, more detailed dive. But as more of a zoomed out answer, I would just echo what Sarah said, and also note that the Commission on the Status of Women's priority theme for 2022 is focused on climate change and environmental and disaster risk reduction. And we're not going to require that scholars do something explicitly related to that topic, but just for those that come from a more natural sciences or just STEM generally background, I think there's ways to tie that in, especially in this upcoming year, I imagine. So we can definitely find ways to be creative about how that research project might look to tie in all your interests.
And I would add too, if we don't have a scholar who has that same background experience or research topic, then we need you, because we need to continue researching and building advocates in all disciplines of life. And so the way we do that is touching on different topics. So just a note.
Definitely. So then just adding in the questions about what were the best parts and what were the most challenging parts. And anybody want to answer that first?
I can begin that question. I think for me, one of the best parts for me had to definitely be the connections. Up until that point, when I was a scholar, I was a senior. So most of the research environments I had been in, it was a lot different. I saw a whole bunch of different people, but being with WomenNC, you really got to see feminist women taking this approach of science, and being in an environment like that, it really can just empower you in a way that at least I didn't know that I needed to be empowered, to be in an environment where all of the research and the kindness and the genuine that you can get from an environment like that can really just boost you to the next level, to not only make you a better researcher or in whatever you have your hands in, but just also empower you as a woman as well. So that was probably one of the best things. And for me, probably one of my biggest challenges was just the timing. With me being a graduating senior, I definitely had to balance doing the project, finishing my homework, getting assignments done, having to complete stuff for graduation, having to balance all of that, but it's doable. It was difficult, but of course, being in school, we get that all the time. It's not always going to be easy, but actually having the difficulties with the timing and the just trying to get all of that done, it made me better in my time management, if that makes sense. So having that challenge, it definitely made me better in the long run. But just with the challenges of senior year, just kind of balancing all of the different assignments I had, that was probably one of my biggest challenges.
Yeah, and just to jump off of that, I think Bridget's points are both kind of very similar to my top pro and top con. Definitely pro is, in addition to all of the connections you make and people you get to meet, regardless if you go to New York or not, there still is just so many really cool people to meet in North Carolina, and it can be really easy to stay in your university's kind of bubble, so to speak. And it's nice to be able to reach out to other people that are interested in similar things as you, or you know, researching similar things, and get that connection. But then it also is really, at least cool for me, to be able to explore research in a really meaningful way. So obviously as undergrads, you know, we have the opportunity sometimes to be research assistants, or join a, you know, a professor's project or something like that. But a lot of times, most of the research that we get to do is purely for a class. It isn't, you know, this year-long sort of project with, you know, career researchers assisting us and things of that sort. So that, I think, is a really unique thing. And I know many of the former scholars have gone on to graduate school, so that's something that, you know, you've thought about, or, you know, would potentially be interested in doing, definitely prepares you really well for that, and that sort of structure of writing a thesis, or even just beginning to think about what your interests are in the research field, since it is such a broad thing, and kind of what your approach to it would be. And then I think the con, similar to what Bridget said, is just the time. I mean, like any internship or extracurricular, it is a time commitment. The unique thing, though, about WomenNC is obviously we have some structured meeting times, you know, for our workshops and things of that sort. But a lot of the individual work that you're doing to put into your project and your presentation is very much led by you. So you'll get set up with a femtor, and, you know, have all these supporting structures, but you will have to be ultimately the one who is setting internal deadlines for yourselves and creating tasks. And especially, I think, if you've, you know, never had an internship before, anything like that, it can seem a bit daunting at first. But I think as long as you're intentional about how you spend your time, and how you spend the time of others, specifically when you're, you know, working with femtors or other folks you're consulting with, I think as long as you're intentional with your time, you're going to be just fine. But it is definitely something to think about, since it is a bit less structured than, say, a traditional internship or a traditional research assistantship.
Kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, Sarah, definitely making sure that you can, and Bridget as well, how we can work the WomenNC schedule with your own schedule with school, and balancing, because you know, this is not a grade, this is, you know, your own research and your own pursuit as a scholar. So just balancing that is definitely, you know, something you have to do, which I guess I would say it's a con. But you also learn amazing time management skills, and you're able to work that out. One of a pro of the program is getting to collaborate with other students in the research triangle at other universities and colleges in North Carolina. You're not just in your hub or your bubble at your school. So I really enjoyed getting to work with students at different universities when I was a scholar. So that is a huge plus. I mean, you can't get that just at your school. So WomenNC gives you that advantage of getting to advocate and research and learn, and just working with other students. And I'm still in touch with the other scholars that I was with that year. So that's definitely, I think that's a pro.
I think just to jump in there for me, I think my biggest takeaway from the program was definitely the professional development opportunities. I've had a lot of internships, a lot of work experience, but I think this program really went above and beyond in helping me like prepare for like career-wise and research things in the future. Just to give a couple examples, I think the relationship with the femtors is like very invaluable. My femtor was Manisha Dash, and she was a research analyst at the RTI Global Gender Center, and she was extremely helpful to me. I had no prior experience with like making my own research project. I've always been like interested in like done research as an assistant type thing, but I've never done my own project before. I was very unfamiliar with like methodology, how to make my own research question. And it was just so helpful having someone who has like the background and experience there to guide me and be able to give feedback. I met with her in person a few times. We had a lot of phone calls. We're still in touch now. So I think that was a really great relationship for me to build and have that type of professional network being built already as an undergrad with someone that's in my field of interest. I think even outside just the femtours that you get assigned, you have the opportunity to meet people from your field at the different workshops that we have, the different events that we get to go to. And I think that's very invaluable, because when you're so young and building your network, it really helps set you up for your areas of interest, whether it be for graduate school, whether it be for a career or something like that. So I love that aspect. And I think it was Caitlin who mentioned this, being able to have like a cohort of scholars was just so fun, like being able to like be surrounded by like-minded people who are like very interested and passionate about the same issues you are. Is just like always an amazing experience. I think I'm gonna be a little repetitive here, but like everyone said, the time commitment was of course probably my like biggest con. It is like a big time commitment, but at the same time, like it really does help you learn those like very essential time management skills, and you get the schedule beforehand and know when you need to be committed. So I think like you do have a good understanding of what the program entails before you get into it. It's just kind of a matter of like being able to have it on your calendar and being able to like kind of manage yourself and kind of build that independence and working with your own project. So yeah, that was my kind of pros and cons.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I feel like y'all covered most of what I would say too. I think another sort of more specific part that I really loved was we had training on public speaking and giving presentations. That was probably the first time I'd ever been really formally taught those skills, and that was super cool. We have a really great external presenter that comes and presents. And then, yeah, I think it's so funny that the prompt of what was the most challenging part, everybody's like time, but in a way it kind of fits in with, you know, when you're in undergrad, like time is the issue for basically any big activity you take on. So I would say it's definitely doable. Don't be scared by the fact that we're all like mentioning it. I think it, I found that I sort of treated it like I was taking a full extra class each semester, and I think that's a relatively good way to approximate kind of how to gauge the amount of time you should set out in your schedule. But I want to make room from our prospective scholars if y'all have additional questions that have been coming up about the program, the application, whatever. And before I do that, I just want to name Shri just jumped on, and Shri is one of our program committee members. I don't know, Shri, if you want to briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, sure. Hi, everyone. Lovely to meet all of you. And I'm so excited by your interest and your talent. My name is Shri Ratnasinghe. I work for IBM, and I lead cloud computing, and particularly with a focus on growing women technical leaders. I've been on the board of WomenNC since January and focused on this program to grow women leaders here.
Thank you. So yeah, do we have any additional questions that are coming up?
Since there aren't questions, I just want to throw something out here that I always have thought is really, really interesting about this program. It's not another class, although you might have to set aside enough time for a class, but it's not a class, it's not even a seminar. You are paired one-on-one with a mentor. And I think that kind of individualized, like, what do you want to study, Nia? Let's think about the topic that makes sense for you and your major and what's going on in North Carolina and what's doable. Because that's also, right, you know, we all have these grand ideas. What's actually doable in this time period? And so it's a different experience than even being in a seminar. And I think it was Bridget and several others who talked about their continued relationship with these femtours, which is what we call mentors, that continues and that hook you up with other people. And so to me, that's one of the really fascinating things about the program, is that individual mentor or femtorship. And after you're done with the research, you're then hooked up with an advocacy partner. One of you, I don't know if it was Nia or I can't remember, so one of you said you were really interested in actually seeing stuff happen from your research and having it not sit on the shelf. Well, we have advocacy partners that we that we pair you up with that say, here's an appropriate person to knock on their virtual or literal door. This is an avenue, a town council, a county commission meeting. Here's a person you should talk to because your idea, your public policy solution is a really good one. And so you get helped to actually put this research into action. Now, sometimes it'll take years for research to be put into action, but you will be a part of that by connecting up after the research is done with people who have political power and have the ability to make some of those changes.
I wonder if, Maria, if we just start going through kind of the parts of the application and the overall piece of the program, if questions might come up as we're doing that, unless anybody had anything that came up while Maria was talking. Okay, you're muted right now, Maria.
I could share my screen if you think that's a good idea, and we could go through the application. Would that be for Margaret and Selena and Nia? Would this be something useful to go through the application if I throw it up on the screen and we can go through and see what we see? Let me get there because I was there and then I must have X'd out of it. So give me a second and I will share my screen and we will get there. So hold on. Now I've lost all of you. All right, let me share my screen. Okay. All right, so can you all see the application up on the screen? Is it big enough for everybody? I think that's actually as big as it's going to get.
Can you, Maria, click on the plus sign next to the 100% and maybe zoom in a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, let me pull this out a little bit. How's that? Is that better? I think we can maybe go a little bigger. Let's see. How's that? And how do I get rid of this? Do I do that? No, I don't quite know how to do that. All right, is that big enough then? Do you want me to make it bigger or is that good?
Fine on my screen, but if anybody else can't see it.
If you speak up, if you can't see it, how's that?
Hit the green expand button on your top left-hand side to make it full screen.
Okay.
Great, that helps a little.
Okay. All right. So the first thing that you should note is that the research product that will happen is a 5,000 to 6,000 word research paper. So that's the big thing that you will be doing. That will include not just research on a particular issue that you've heard some of the scholars speak of, but then you will be, if you can see my cursor, 1 to 2 specific actionable and short or medium term policy recommendations, so that the problem of gender disparity that you've uncovered has some sort of at least short to medium term solution. And that will be a part of your paper. So it's not just a research paper, there's also public policy and policy recommendations. Important right here, as I scroll down, is that the application is due right before midnight on Sunday, April 11th. One way we weed out applications is with that deadline. So Sunday, April 11th at 11:59. That's when it's due. So we need a resume from you. That's one thing we do need. The second thing we absolutely need are two letters of recommendations. I've just started to get those now from people who are applying. They should be professors, they could be people who know your work because you've had an internship or a paid job of some sort. Don't ask your friends or family to write them. We want academic or professional or work recommendations there. The next thing that we need from you are essay questions, and there are 3 of them this year. Are there questions just in general about that do recall on April 11th by 11:59? We need a resume, We need 2 letters of recommendation. And if you're thinking of applying, I would make those calls and make those emails now so that your professors and work people have enough time to write those letters. And then you'll need to do the essay questions. Ultimately, you're going to save your application as one single PDF and send it off to me. So not your letters of recommendation, those will come in separately, but your resume, the essay questions, the applicant information, you'll save it as a PDF and send it to me by 11:59. Oh, and there's a typo in here. It's not Sunday, April 4th. It is Sunday, April 11th. We missed that one there. So indeed it is April 11th. So we just need your names, your address, your phone number, where you go to school. That's easy. A 1-page resume would be good. That hopefully you have or can get together. You'll also give me the name of your recommenders so that I know to expect one from Jane Doe and John Smith or whoever it is. And you'll tell me, are they a professor? Are they somebody who I've worked with? That sort of thing. And once again, I keep saying, although I forgot one place, April 11th is when it's due. Here are the essay questions. We have 3 of them. And Lauren, since you were so instrumental in doing this, would you mind taking over and just talking a little bit about the essay questions?
Yeah, certainly. So the first question, we're really interested in just knowing what it is that you would want to explore and study in your research project. And so space to write about what you're interested in. And then we're curious to know if you've already explored the topic and just to talk about your previous experience with it, but it's also fine if this topic is not something you've explored before. If you haven't, just let us know how doing this program will allow you to study that topic. And then the next question is really related to the theme of time management that we've been talking about. We just want to know how generally your interests, your experiences, your skills, your habits will allow you to successfully complete the program, especially as it relates to the time commitment and the advocacy requirements. And then the last question is, we're curious how you see this experience fitting into your future endeavors and supporting you in meeting your goals for your future. So yeah, I think, I don't know, let's pause there. Does anybody have any questions so far of anything we've talked about related to the application? Okay, well, if not, I feel like we could, Maria, just go over a little bit of the program and then we can wrap up.
Okay, so I'm now scrolling down to the timeline, which is attached to the application, and just want to let you all know that that in the beginning of May you'll be notified whether you'll be notified as to whether you're moving on to the next stage of the. So I should say this, Lauren, that we should talk about that. You know, you'll be asked to, if we pick you as a semifinalist, you'll be asked to have an in-person interview with us. But we would like to, by mid-May, really begin the program. And the first thing is really, we call it a FemTour, FemTeam meetup, where we'll meet some of the FemTours, you'll brainstorm on your interest and focus areas, and we'll make sure that you're paired with somebody who has the skills and research knowledge to actually help you complete your project. So that'll begin in mid-May. And we're starting in mid-May. This is actually new for the former scholars. This is our first year of beginning in May, because we want to have enough time for you to not only do your research, but to do that advocacy piece and make sure you get to use your research to actually help North Carolina women on the ground.
Maria, let me just quickly jump in about the interview part. So sometime between April 11th and May 3rd, if you're selected to keep moving through the selection process, we're going to do a brief interview with you, and those will be virtual. We'll do those over Zoom. So you'll get advance notice of when those slots will be and be able to sign up for a time that would.
And there'll be some choice there so that we're not interfering with, with your classes. There'll be choice.
Yeah, I just wanted, but those will be virtual.
We also, which I've mentioned, the individualized femtor-femtee relationship, but we also gather, as I think Caitlin spoke about and some others about, we gather together as a group virtually, at least for the beginning part, and maybe in person later in the year, we'll see, with workshops that address what we believe are some of the concrete skills you will need in order to succeed in the program, but also to succeed as women leaders. So the first one will take place, the first two will take place over the summer. And the very first one is a social science research. We want to give you the tools that will enable you to engage in serious social science research methods, so that the paper you produce will be something you can be proud of and can share, and will have some real worth to other people who explore this topic as well. And then the second workshop we'll have over the summer deals specifically with feminist public policy and what that might mean as you're crafting your research paper and thinking about the kinds of solutions to the problems that you've identified. How do you do that through a gendered lens? What does it mean to engage in public policy with a gendered lens? So we'll do those two workshops, and we'll all be together. The entire cohort will be together for those virtually. Then as the summer moves on and you've thought about your questions and you've been in touch with your femtors and perhaps your other cohort, you'll actually think of your research question, and you'll have a, you'll be doing that from, mid-May through to July 11th. We'll approve the research question by mid-July, and that will be your question that you will then, if you haven't already, begun to do some lit review about and think about how you're going to proceed. So then you will do your lit review, and by the beginning of August, submit that to your femtor so that she can take a look at what you believe is needed in order for you to understand the topic fully. We have another workshop before school begins in August, and that's a workshop about what it means to be a leader, what it means to be a feminist leader, and what we believe that you will need to continue your work going forward. Again, we'll do that as a group. By the end of August, right before school starts, you will submit a draft project outline to your femtor. And you will, define the issue. You'll give us some background because you've done the lit review. You'll do all those sorts of things that an outline and a draft proposal would include. And so that's a pretty important deadline. You will be working through the summer, but if you have a job and other internships, all of these workshops are held on Sundays. So they should not be, they'll be held on Sunday afternoons. So they will not be and should not be that much in conflict with some other obligations that you might have as the summer goes on. I mentioned to you as we move into September that not only will you be working very, very closely with your femtor, but you will have an advocacy partner who will be able to guide you and help you think about who is your target audience. If you have curricular changes, maybe you should be thinking about not a city council or a county commission, but about a superintendent of public instruction. Who are the people, what are the institutions that will listen to your policy solutions, that will be interested in what you have to say? So you'll be paired with them in September. Your research outline will be approved by mid-September, and we will check in because we don't have a workshop in September, but we'll have a Sunday evening kind of check-in with all of the scholars just to say hi, because we won't have seen each other since August 8th. So we'll check in again in September. In October, we have a networking event where you will meet WomenNC board members, the femtors will be there, advocates, some of the other former femtors. We've often had legislators come. We have a networking event where you can meet some of the people that will help you move your research forward, and you can connect up to, so that as you begin your leadership journey, you will have connections within North Carolina that you can call on. I met you at the WomenNC networking event back in October, Miss Smith. I have a question for you. You might remember me. I am researching health disparities in rural North Carolina. We will then evaluate where you are on the program and make sure you're on track. We want you to succeed. So if we don't see an outline, if your femtor is kind of worried, we're going to be checking in with you well before this date. But this is a hard deadline where we will hopefully we'll have nothing to say and everybody will be on track. But if you need a little bit of extra support, this will be a time where you absolutely will get it, because we will be on it, as it were. As we move into November, we'll have a Zoom check-in again because we won't have had a workshop. We don't want to have the workshops at the same time that you're trying to do your research. We want you to focus on your research. But we also, as November comes around, we want you to have been working with your advocacy partners to identify 3 stakeholders that you're going to direct, towards whom you're going to direct your advocacy efforts. You know, is it a town council? Is it a city council? Is it a individual legislator? Is it somebody who runs a public health agency in a particular county? Who is it that when this is all done, you're going to knock on their door and say, I've got something to show you. I've got something you might be interested to know. Later on in November, the draft of your research paper will be due. And before winter break, your final research paper is due. We want this whole thing wrapped up before you take a break in between semesters. Why, you say? Because come January, we're back into doing workshops again. We're going to talk about what it means to be an advocate and how you develop an advocacy strategy so that you can get your policy solutions at least into the minds and ears of policymakers. You will give us that month over the break, if you haven't already. Your final paper with all of its loveliness will be due to us so that we have it in hand. You'll also be doing, as Lauren talked about, a public speaking workshop. It's a really good one where you learn to effectively communicate your ideas to a variety of audiences. At the end of the month, there is a 1 to 2 page summary of your research paper, because as you probably know, policymakers are probably not going to read your 6,000 word research paper, but they might read a 1 to 2 page executive summary about what your research was about and your key findings. There'll be 2 or 3 slides that you'll do too, so that when you go in front of people, you have slides. We will do a dress rehearsal for our February event, our local to global forum in January as well. So there's a big North Carolina presentation in February called the Local to Global Forum, where you will present your work to politicians, to academics, to elected officials, to appointed officials, to feminist leaders. It's a really, really interesting statewide forum where you are the main event. You'll be continuing to knock on doors and do your advocacy work. And in early March, we will be presenting, as we just did last week, at the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women. Every year for 11 years, we have been invited to participate in the NGO forum, and we anticipate that that will be the same next year. We're also looking into the programming committee, and others are looking into other conferences, other places where you might present your research and engage in that kind of large scale advocacy efforts. There is another opportunity in April at NC State in their Gender and Equity Research Symposium. We have been invited to participate in that every year, and I anticipate that will be the same. Another place for you to get your research out there, your ideas and your policy solutions out there. And we'll wrap up the program by mid-April. I'm going to be quiet now. Lauren?
Yeah, no, it's so exciting just hearing about it. I'm like reliving my experience. So yeah, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we'll wrap up in a few minutes. But if there's any questions at all that while we're all here we can answer for our prospective scholars, like feel free.
And they always say no question is a stupid question, but it's not, because I did go through really quickly. So if you have what do you mean public speaking and presentation workshop? What do you mean CSW? Those are fine kinds of questions to ask.
And I'll also say, though, if you leave here today and think of something, you're welcome to, let me put my email in the chat. I think that I already have yours, Maria, right? Okay.
I'll stop the share for the moment.
Well, if not, I was just going to say I hope you all apply, and I hope that we can read your applications and hopefully see you in the program. I want to thank all of our former scholars for being here, and Ava and Samha and Maria. Yeah, Maria, anything else?
I don't think so. Samha, I think you and I, let's connect up in the next day or two and just have a conversation. Does that work?
Would love that. And I would just say, as we're all saying our byes to all the students who can apply, do it. Because I find myself at a place where I'm buzzing with energy, and I just need to know how to put my ideas into action, and this seems like a venue for doing that. So all the applicants who are in school right now, do it. Don't be afraid of the time commitment. This is the time to do this. But
wow.
thank you.
I'm hiring you as my marketing director, Samha.
Yeah, I would love to do that, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for organizing this. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. Great. And the rest of the team. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. Well, send questions. You know, Lauren put her email in there, but I'm there. It's info@womennc.org, also my name. So you can get a hold of us. We want to help you both in the application process and if you're selected as scholars. That's who we are. This is, you know, we're feminists in that regard. Good products, but lots of support. And that means everything from the application moving forward. We'd love to help you succeed and become a WomenNC scholar.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your week.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.